Just 3 weeks after the assault on the U.S. Capitol, the Department of Homeland Security is warning of more potential threats from domestic terrorists in the coming weeks. A Wednesday DHS bulletin warns extremists emboldened by the attack on the U.S. Capitol, quote, could continue to mobilize to incite or commit violence. The FBI is sorting through some 200,000 tips, social media posts, and police body cam footage to identify suspects. That is in addition to the 400 people they've already flagged as people of interest. So far, 150 of them have been charged in federal court. Another 50 were charged in Washington, D.C.'s Superior Court. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins me now. Hi there, Catherine. I know the attack on the Capitol was 3 weeks ago. You've been following all of these investigations, but tell us why DHS is issuing an alert now, and how long do they predict that this threat will last?
Well, Elaine, the current and former Homeland Security officials we spoke with today here at CBS News all said the same thing, is they think the bulletin is being released now because it's a reflection of this high chatter. This is the discussion that people are referencing on social media, and also just a function of the calendar. The new administration has been in place for about a week, and it's given some time for the acting Homeland Security Secretary to look at the threat landscape, and a decision was made that they wanted to warn the public in a very obvious way about the high threat level, especially in the wake of January 6th. And January 6th is universally described, whether it's by Homeland Security or FBI or the National Counterterrorism Center, as a pivotal event that really has emboldened extremist groups. So individuals who have been thinking about acting out violently, the successful breach of the Capitol has given them new motivation and a new feeling that maybe they can be successful if they cross that threshold to violence with their political objectives.
Well, right now, the U.S. can go after terrorists overseas by designating groups foreign terrorist organizations, but there's no equivalent law when it comes to domestic groups. And former Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff addressed this on CBS This Morning earlier. Let's listen to that.
Well, first of all, there are a lot of statutes that can be applied. It's not necessarily true that you have to apply something called domestic terrorism. We also, by the way, have hate crime laws, which could be used in some of these circumstances. The question about passing a domestic terrorism law is, does it really add anything? And again, we don't want to go so far as to criminalize unpopular ideas. So I would take it slowly, and I wouldn't rush to pass something.
So, Catherine, how does law enforcement fight domestic terrorism without a specific statute to address that?
Well, I think there are, Elaine, really two parts to this discussion. The first is what you heard from the former Secretary of Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff, who served under a Republican administration. He's saying there are a lot of laws on the books already that really can effectively deal with the situation we're feeling today. Don't be in a rush to put new laws on the book. But the counter argument is that saying it's a domestic terrorist act could have a deterrent effect for individuals who are considering violence. We talked about this the other day. It's the difference between someone who's radicalized by al-Qaeda plowing a car into a crowd of people and killing 6 of them and facing a terrorism charge in that particular case, and another individual who is inspired or radicalized by a domestic extremist group doing the same thing, but they would be charged with murder or manslaughter. So there's a lot of symbolism to the language, and what the former secretary is getting to is that you have to go slowly because you are really entering this realm of political speech. And the question becomes, when do you cross that threshold from First Amendment rights and free speech into this red line where you clearly are inciting violence for a political objective? And of course, that is the definition on the books for terrorism.
So, Catherine, what is this federal investigation into the Capitol riot telling us about this threat of domestic extremism?
Well, what we've learned through our reporting here at CBS News is that investigators are very focused on what I would describe as a handful of upcoming sedition cases. We saw the first conspiracy case that was brought against 3 members or alleged members of a group called the Oath Keepers. This is a group that believes the government is systematically stripping them of their constitutional rights. What I expect to see in the coming weeks, based on my reporting, is that there will be sedition charges, and what they will show is very significant coordination among small groups or cells of individuals, and then also premeditation. So in simple terms, that they really got the ball rolling to launch their breach of the Capitol days ahead of January 6th.
Right, disturbing to hear. Catherine Herridge in Washington for us. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.